English expression called, I've got butterflies in my stomach, which is a way of saying I'm anxious. So I need a moment to get my butterflies flying in formation. I can sense them flying in formation now. So I'm dealing with my anxiety by using that image of myself for myself. And I would like us all now to imagine that those of us who are going to work together in the first circle, as it were, are actually sitting in a room together, and that I'm holding the space with us and for us. And I'd like you, can I see who's in the group? Because I can't see everybody. Are you all along the top line of my screen?
You'd have to hit the forward button. There are 44 people on this call. This is one of our biggest subscribed calls.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Can you see where there's an arrow that points forward and you can just scroll along?
Yes. Hello, and people are waving. Wonderful. Lovely to see you. So let's imagine, oh, it's so lovely to be seen, and I feel your presence already. And I love, Kieran, that you volunteered. Are you volunteering to be the person who tells their situation?
We have not yet, but go ahead.
Yeah, you are you, Kieran? Thank you so much.
Not as far as I know.
You were so keen to volunteer to start with. What did you volunteer for, Kieran?
To be part of the 7. So
wonderful.
to be
part of the 7. Okay. Who would like to volunteer their situation for us to talk about?
So Fiona, before we do that, let's be sure that we have the group in place, because I think Maria Ines, who offered volunteer, her camera is not working. So,
okay.
So far we have confirmed Kieran, Michael, Michelle, Andrea, Kathleen. And
there was one more person. Who was it?
Maria Ines, but she cannot turn on her camera.
No, Andrea? I thought we had 7 already. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who was the other person?
Maria Ines, she cannot.
No, Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, anybody else?
One more person.
This is Matt.
Hi. Hello. Okay, so we've got our 7. What I'd like to say is that we will also have all the others who are sitting around us. So we're kind of in the center of the circle at the moment. And all the others who signed up are sitting around us, with us, okay? So the way I'd like us to work today is to spend a little time hearing the story of the person who's agreed to tell their story, their situation. And what I'd like us to do is to notice any resonance we feel, body, mind, or feelings, that we're aware of as we listen.
So would you like the rest of us to turn our cameras off? Would that be helpful?
It would be helpful to me, yeah.
Okay. So everyone turn off their cameras except the 7 plus Fiona.
7, yeah.
Now the last person was Matt, but Matt, are you driving now? Because I see you in the car. Did you park or are you driving? Because if you're driving...
I am parked. I am in a car and I am parked.
Okay, great. That will work. Okay, so everybody else, let's turn off our camera. So Fiona, we have 30 minutes, the most for this session, so then we'll have time for discussion. Would that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And now I've obviously become anxious again because I've forgotten who volunteered to speak.
Okay, so the 7 people who volunteer are going to stay. Everybody else, we're going to turn down our cameras and our microphones, please. And then we're going to also close the room so you don't have any interruptions. So Nick will be doing that in a minute.
And I'm also going to put the names in the base camp or in the chat all together, okay? Because they're all scattered.
No. Sorry. I don't want us to be in a locked room. I want for us all to be available to one another. The volunteer, the small group, and the big group.
Oh, no. So the locking means that nobody can come in the middle of your session from outside.
I misunderstood. I'm such a novice at this.
No, that's okay. Does that work for you? We lock it so nobody can come
Thank you very
out?
much, Lily. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me about that.
Oh, okay. And now I'm anxious because I've forgotten who volunteered to tell their situation.
Fiona, it's lovely to see you. This is Kathleen.
Oh, hi.
I didn't come prepared to speak about something, but at any moment I can surface issues. So I am happy to volunteer unless someone has a more burning situation they want to process.
Okay. Did Michael, did you put your hand up to volunteer? Oh, Michael, could you turn your, yeah.
No, but I can also if you like.
Oh, well, so there's
Because I'm on the panel, I was just agreeing. I was like, great, that's great that we have a volunteer.
Okay, so, well, no, of course, I've forgotten the name of the person who just said she would do it as well.
Kathleen, yeah, Kathleen will.
Okay, could you then prepare yourself to tell us a bit of your situation that you'd like to explore with us?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, well, I love being a supervisor, and I love being supervised. So I'm quite happy to explore anything with the group.
Yeah.
So the situation that came to my mind when I was thinking about, is there anything I would like to process? I have been coaching a woman, a senior HR leader in a large organization for 13 months now. And this was supposed to be a 6 to 9 month assignment. And when the organization contracted with me, they said, sometimes our assignments run long. And I said, why do your assignments run long? And they said, well, because sometimes it takes more time to make progress. And I didn't really understand that. So I took 2 leaders on at the same time. One of them I've wrapped up with. What is curious to me is I feel this dynamic with my client that she doesn't want to wrap up our engagement. Even though I also feel that we have done probably as much work as we can on the issues that we originally contracted for. And I have now brought up to her at least 2 times, maybe 3, that I think we probably want to talk about wrapping up our engagement and doing that final stakeholder feedback set of interviews. And in the last couple of sessions where I've mentioned this, toward the end of the session, she said, oh, yes, yes, yes. And then the next session comes and she's got a burning issue regarding something a little bit related to our original contract, but mostly in a new direction. And so I find it fascinating that she doesn't want to end the engagement. And she's a lovely woman and I enjoy her, but I got paid a fixed amount of money. And so every extra month and session that goes by, it's just diminishing the amount of per session money I've made. And there's a little power dynamic here because she is also tangentially in charge of the organization hiring coaches. So she recommends coaches into the organization and out of the organization. And I don't know why that matters to me, because after these 2 engagements with this client organization, I have found that I don't enjoy the engagements. And so it's unlikely that I would say yes to a future engagement with them. So I'm sort of observing myself in this dynamic of wanting to wrap up, her not really wanting to meet me there. It's just curious.
Yeah. So what I'd like to suggest now is that we do a round of responses from people who've listened to you, telling your story, watching you, how you've been with us. Just a quick round of everybody who's on that inner circle. Share what was resonating for you as you listen to this account. Don't be shy.
So I was feeling some irritation and anger on Kathleen's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was feeling almost abusive.
Oh, okay.
Could you use the last word? Was that abusive, did you say?
Abusive, yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, anyone else like to comment? That's quite a
Yes, yes, I had a similar situation 6-7 years ago. An HR executive wanted to leave the coaching
So it
to have the-
reminded you of your work too, right?
Yeah, and this HR executive wanted to have an experience of coaching, but he had no request, nothing, no engagement, no enthusiasm. It was like, I don't know, testing something that has no test for him. So I was a bit extremely upset.
So I heard the word testing. That's certainly what I sensed myself. But this is a testing situation. Thank you, Michelle. Good. Anyone else like to comment?
Yes, I had when I was listening, what came up for me was the word boundaries. And I was wondering what was going on with Kathleen, that she was having a hard time setting boundaries, and where else in her life that might show up.
Oh, right, okay. And what did it feel like to you to listen to this account? You had a thought about it. What was your feeling?
I was just questioning, like, why, like what, like I felt this resistance almost like in my body, sort of like kind of what, not, and Jonathan used the word anger. I would have used the word manipulation. Like it almost felt like she feels like she's being manipulated, but she actually has control to set the boundaries. So I was kind of feeling that.
Where in your body do you feel that?
I felt it sort of in my stomach. I felt like sort of a tension.
Oh, right. Okay. So you picked up tension, right, as well as having thoughts. Good. Now someone else came in.
Yeah, this is Matt. Can you hear me?
Hi. Hello.
Hi there. I was thinking that for Kathleen, there's some part of her that doesn't want to end the engagement yet.
Now, hold on a minute. I'm going to stop you there, because what Kathleen most needs is your response, not your interpretation of her.
Oh, okay. So my response is, I've had this happen before, and it was really fun for me to find the part of me that didn't want to end the engagement.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
For me,
hi, Kieran, yeah.
Hi there. So I was, what I noticed was that I kept going into my head. Like I was really trying to be present in my body, and I kept going into my head, and I wanted solutions, and I was looking at where I had similar situations. Sure. And what I did notice was what I was feeling was uncomfort, like discomfort in my stomach, and frustration.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So anyone else in the small group who hasn't said anything?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I got all fired up because it touched on a number of issues, professional and personal. So the idea of contracting, conflict of interest, and the inability to say no were all things that were just lighting up for me.
Okay. And what was your sense in your own body? Fired up. Where did you feel the fire?
Yeah, both in my chest and my head, because facing similar, it recalled similar challenges that I've experienced.
Yeah, challenges that you were able to learn from and deal with. All right. Well,
very much so. Painfully, but yes.
Okay, that's important you said that, because what I'm hearing also from people is this pain in this situation. And I thank you. And I would like to come back to our storyteller and say, okay, Kathleen, what are you sensing now as you've heard this first round of responses?
Well, what I'm feeling right now is sobriety, as I listen to all these. What struck me, what grabbed my attention more than other statements, was resistance. And I feel the client resisting wanting to end. And the other piece was, what about me doesn't want to end the engagement? And I think that that's curious. And my quick answer there, and I think I should spend some more time thinking about that, is to some extent, and this is where boundaries come in, I feel a little bit like this woman's lifeline. Because here she is, sort of a very senior leader in HR, also responsible for, you know, bringing coaches into the organization. And her skip level leader is not supportive of her.
Okay.
I think her job is on the line, honestly. And so I feel like I'm this little lifeline to keep her working on staying employed there because her job is on the line. And so it's not, I don't have a fast impulse to say, engagement's done, let's wrap this up. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for her.
You have. I was going to say, might you like to do a little experiment with me and hold the image that you've given of a lifeline and just drop down into that deeper part of yourself, shut your eyes and stay with that image of you as her lifeline and just see what comes up for you.
Well, my first reaction was, I don't love being in the ocean for long periods of time. So it's funny, I have lived on the ocean for many years. Yeah, a little bit is nice, and then I want to get out. So that's the first thing that comes up.
Okay. So stay there, see what else.
Yeah, the water feels, it's not too turbulent, actually. It just feels like being buffeted around a little bit. It's not horribly turbulent. It doesn't feel unsafe. I can't actually see my client.
Oh.
I mean, I sort of sense that my rope is going out somewhere out there, but I can't really feel a lot of tension or pull on it, and I can't see the client.
Okay. So that's very interesting what you say. Are you hearing yourself? It's a fascinating image, isn't it? Yeah. It's out there, you don't see her, you don't sense any tension, water's not turbulent. Okay,
it's
now.
Not unpleasant.
It's what, sorry?
It's not unpleasant. I mean, the water temperature is not really cold, so it's not unpleasant to be there just kind of bouncing along.
Okay, just bouncing along, yeah. Okay, water's all right.
Yeah.
How long are you going to stay there?
So it feels like there's no impetus or need to get back to the shore. Wow. And I've drifted far enough away from the shore. It's not like it's right here. So how long am I going to stay there? This is where I just show up all over the place in my life.
Say more.
Which is, what came up for me is, probably the impetus will be the next thing that grabs my attention to say, okay, now it's time to get out. Either I get closer to the shore, the water gets colder, or a boat comes and splashes water all over my face, and I say, okay, now that's enough. And so what's funny is I'm going, oh, and isn't that how I show up in other places? So yeah, that's a big one.
It sure is. Yeah.
Oh.
So share with us right now what's going on in your body.
Tingling, like this little effervescent bubble of, surprise and I don't know, sort of being able to laugh at myself there. It's not unpleasant, the sensation.
Okay. And then do you have any sense of where next? Because it sounds to me as if you're waiting.
Yeah, so if I think about recognizing this is a little bit of a pattern for me, I feel like I want to do some appreciative inquiry around what has been useful in the past when I've been here kind of in this waiting pattern.
Yes.
Like what finally did become that trigger impetus, and how can I use more of that here?
Good. So this is a bit of an echo of some of the others' responses to you, that they were also remembering their own situation, which for some was quite painful to deal with because of the pull. And in a way, I was noticing the tension of the rope was not very strong. And so in a way, you'd offered the rope, but it wasn't being pulled on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So
yeah, it is interesting. I think that what struck me, and of course now I've got my supervisor's hat on a little bit. What struck me is how we interpret through our own world, which is the only world we have and the only world we can interpret through.
That's right.
But I don't feel anger. I don't feel manipulated. I don't feel abused. I don't feel a lot of those feelings.
Right.
It is more like this lack of tension, lack of, and I think it was Andrea who said, you know, there's nothing that's stopping me from just saying, okay, we're wrapping up. There's nothing other than what I described of, I feel her job's on the line. I have great empathy for that. And I don't want to be part of that trigger for her. And not that I am. I mean, if she loses her job, it won't be because of me. I'm very clear about that.
I'm conscious that I wonder also whether we might broaden out our inquiry together with hearing from some of the folk who are sitting around us. Would you like to hear from them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So would those in the wider circle like to offer in some resonances, having heard this first stage of the process? Lily, can you organize that?
Sure. So there's two ways of doing it. You can either speak up or you can put something in the chat room. Your first round, because we have 45 people on the call. So
there may not be room for everybody, but it'd be interesting to hear from a few of you what it was like to engage at a deep level with this inquiry. That's what I'm hoping you'll be able to offer us. A few more comments that Kathleen can take away. Oh, there's lots of things in the chat room. Oh.
Sorry, are we to give feedback on what Kathleen just said, or?
I'd like you to wait, Michael, and hear from other folks who weren't in the small group.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So first comment is from Lori, thinking that the client was attached to Kathleen's support.
Okay. So let's hear from a few more folk and then we'll hear back from Kathleen.
Our whole selves are rich resources, reflective. Also, I felt like the client didn't want to let go of the relationship. I personally wondered about the patterns and endings.
Yeah.
Kathleen was being careful of the relationship with her client.
And there's some word of overwhelm and pressure.
If you had any conversation with her about roles you're playing with each other. When does the contract become personal in a coaching relationship? How does one know? Being that way myself, I wondered about the drama triangle rescue role. Kathleen has lovely energy, curious about how she moves into and out of commitments in her work and life. Yes, patterns. What's Kathleen noticing in terms of patterns?
Kathleen, how are you doing? Hearing all that, seeing that in the chat room.
There's a lot that resonates.
Excellent.
And again, the one that kind of piqued my interest to go reflect on more is the one of, I have lovely energy. I'm curious how I move into and out of commitments in my work and life.
Right.
Because I think that's where the pattern of endings happens, that I can be in a place that isn't quite working for me and needing to wait for something else to happen. But then the early side of that is how do I enter into relationships? So, you know, what pulls me in and what pulls me out. So I'll look at that more.
Good.
And I think that the comment of, would it be interesting to engage with my client about the roles we're playing? Yes.
Yeah, good.
And then Lily, you said something and you didn't type it, you said it, and I thought it was great, and then I lost what it was. Do you remember what you said that you were curious about?
I don't know. Maybe it's about endings. How do we do endings? And I noted someone else said every ending is a new beginning.
Yeah.
What is in the system is resisting a new beginning. So there's a few more I'll put into this space, and then I'll let.
Oh, and that's interesting.
Patterns, taking responsibility of others' self, contracting and the natural boundaries there, and what pulled Kathleen away from that. Every ending is a new beginning. What's in the system? What in this system is resisting a new beginning? Kathleen can be careful of the relationship and also manage it. Maybe the client does need a lifeline in her perception and is happy to stay connected, even if a tenuous link. Wonder if the client not picking up on the impact of her behavior on Kathleen was showing up anywhere else in the client's work. Maybe she doesn't see you as a lifeline at all. Wondering where Kathleen's sense of vulnerability.
Gosh, there's a lot here, Lily.
What is personally at stake? So let's end there, and then, yeah.
I don't know about you, Kathleen, but I'm feeling a wee bit overwhelmed. There's so many rich sources of exploration here, aren't there?
Absolutely. I don't feel overwhelmed. I feel like
just me.
Yeah, there are many things. And so my hope is, and Lily, this may be a question for you. My hope is you can record and export the chat feature, because I'd like to read it after we're off this conversation and actually do some more processing. I love the comment of, I wondered if the client is not picking up on the impact of her behavior and how that's showing up elsewhere in the client's work. I have no idea, but that's interesting. And Ava, can you say more about the wondering where my sense of vulnerability is? I'm curious about that.
Am I allowed to jump in that group?
Sure. Go ahead.
Hello.
So hello, everyone. Kathleen, so yeah, because I was struck when you said, I wait until the wave splashes on my face. So I almost felt it, and I said, okay. So then you got vulnerable.
Yes, I got it.
That was it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So it feels like my work now is to really look at endings, when it makes sense to choose them versus wait for them, something to happen, the water come into my face. And I like the idea of having a conversation with her about the roles and what's happening with this dynamic, and mostly between us, but if it's showing up elsewhere. So those feel very, very useful.
Good. So we probably need to be beginning to wind up, Kathleen. Have you got what you needed from our time together, all of us?
Oh my God, I'm surprised because, as I said, I didn't really have any issues. And so this is one we could work with. So there's actually quite a bit here for me on just this micro issue and a much bigger pattern for me to pay attention to and look at further. So I got a lot out of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who chipped in. It's been absolutely fascinating because one never knows with these situations how it's going to go, but such richness. People willing to chip in and offer themselves and their thoughts and their feelings. Thank you, everybody. So shall we wind up there? Unless anybody has anything more they're burning to offer.
I was struck by the water issue and this idea of being adrift and this ocean, which oceans have no boundaries. So that she was very comfortable in this ocean. And the idea of, the lifeline also brought up the image of throwing her a lifesaver, much like the Cartman drama triangle of, she's being persecuted, she may lose her job, and you're coming in as a rescuer, you have great empathy for her, and that aspect. So a bit of a nautical theme there going forward. I'm just wondering how you can catch yourself. I got the sense of being somewhat drifting and okay with it, but at the same time recognizing that you weren't necessarily getting more comfortable with it, but more that it was a question of something needs to change.
So, Kathleen, here's another layer of something. Do you want to respond to Michael? Or just hold it?
Yeah, hold it. I appreciate the notion that this ocean is boundless. And so it's probably up to me in this scenario to really take in what I need and be able to get out by myself, because the ocean won't do it.
That's right. Yeah. Good.
Could I add something also, please? There's a piece that was mentioned. I mean, if Kathleen, if you hadn't said, I'm essentially doing the rest of my sessions for free, or then there wouldn't really be much of a reason not to continue, it seems to me, from what you've said. And it seems like that got lost in our discussion and maybe in your discussion with her.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I mean, it's true. I'm enjoying working with her. I think I'm helping. And so if she wanted to recontract, then I would be all in. Yeah, so that is a possible kind of way through the ocean, right? Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, and Damien, Lily, do we need to then end this part of our call together?
You have 4 more minutes. Yes, if you want to use a few minutes to wrap up this group, and there are also 2 more comments in the chat room from Leanne and Didi. You wanna?
Okay. I'm looking at the last comments that have just come in. Do you see them, Kathleen?
Yep, I do see them.
Anything you'd like to just take in or respond to?
Well, the last one about the norm is to continue, which, as we said, was the organization's first notification to me.
Yeah, set you up.
And it is interesting, the woman who contracted with me for this engagement has been running the coaches, and I gave her feedback and a suggestion early on based on my other client within this organization that I didn't think that contracting for a year was perhaps the best way to go within this organization, because my other client really didn't show up. And I said, what if we did a 3-month engagement? And if both coach and client at the end of that 3 months wanted to contract for more, they could. And so it is interesting that I'm already trying to push the norm in this organization, even as I don't believe I would take on another engagement with this group. So it is interesting to say what would happen if I was the only one to finish quote on time. And of course, I'm a month beyond the outside of the on time. But yeah, there is something about the organizational system and the norms that are operating there.
Exactly. So in a way, you're all caught in the same dynamic, aren't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So yeah, it's so interesting. So many layers and levels of this situation. Inside you, between you, inside her, in the organization. It's multi-layered, isn't it? So should we try and separate now? Just conscious we're hanging on as well.
I feel like I want to get out of the ocean now. So this is
sure,
great.
me too.
I'm taking my life preserver and I'm pulling my rope and I'm saying, God, the water was fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm done. I'm complete.
let's get back to the shore. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, too. That's a great way to finish. Right. So, Lily, Damien, are we back on shore together?
Okay, so now we can ask everybody to turn on your camera, not your microphones, please. So just turn your microphone when you speak. So Fiona, is there any particular question that you would like to ask everybody who was observing? Or would you like to hear some reactions? Or what would you like to do in the next? We have 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I think I'd like to hear some reactions because my intention was for us to, in a way, use our senses, our bodily sensations, our feelings, not just our thoughts, about what we were resonating with from the story. And what I heard was a lovely mixture of ideas, experiences, some feelings, some bodily sensations. And I actually found it all very rich. And I wonder whether my expectation was difficult for you. And oh, I don't know. I'd just like to hear what you thought about the process that I set up. Michel, you're going to say something.
Yes, I have noticed that very quickly the comments from the attendees were more interpretative,
yes,
analytic, possibly sometimes a bit projective. And I'm questioning myself about what kind of parallel process is that showing.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Thank you for that. Very perceptive.
I particularly like the fact that you asked her to drop down to see what would come up and surface, paradoxically, but wonderful technique because that gave the metaphor and an expression of it in a different way that resonated with her, her way of being as opposed to her way of thinking. Yes. And I think it allowed that kind of natural reflection to evoke itself, which I thought was great.
Okay. Thank you.
What I noticed was that when Kathleen, my perception was when Kathleen began and told the story, that all the feedback that we got was, well, a lot of the feedback we got from that inner circle was a very thought processed. And I think as the conversation went on, Kathleen dropped into her body, and there was that expression she used, not unpleasant. And as soon as she said that, I felt like I was in front of a fireplace with a book, with a warm shawl, and I was really feeling, and then a lot of more emotions and feeling came out of the conversation.
Wonderful, Kieran, wonderful. And can I just say, could we address Kathleen? She is here with us, but she's not just a she, she's Kathleen. So when you have a comment, then it's about what's happened towards Kathleen. Say what I thought, Kathleen, or what I felt, so that we can rectify her. But thanks for what you said. Interesting observation.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay.
It's Julie here. I was quick to observe myself and others how quickly we go to interpretation versus observation, and you quickly pull that back. And I also, similar to Kieran, love the drop down into image, right? And how that can shift our way of being. So I like that. Thank you.
Good, good.
This is Naomi Garcia. What the image that came up to me throughout the whole demonstration was akin to how we use our lungs, is that we shallow breathe, use 20% of our capacity. And I experienced a significant shift into being much closer to using 100%. As an image of her whole self, you invited her, created a reflective space, and encouraged her to keep going. Thank you very much. That was excellent.
Good, thank you.
And I noticed, Fiona, we've kind of said this, but your continual questioning about feelings. I hear a lot of thoughts. How are you feeling? You'd ask different people, Kathleen as well as others. And kind of a stance, and I was thinking, well, there's the feeling in and of itself, and then I was watching to see what you were going to do with it, like how you were going to follow that up. And where people went, again, we're a bunch of coaches and supervisors, so we'll go there probably naturally. But if we were with a client, it might need a little bit more help along. I was thinking that the follow-up question naturally is, and what is that telling you?
Yeah.
Any other ones, Fiona? Follow-up questions with that?
Hi. Sorry.
You know, Fiona, it seems like it is a field rife with rescuing. And that was my first feeling, which is always very typical in these kinds of situations. Oh, we have to figure out a way to help you. Oh, this could be difficult for you, you know? And so you get the rescuing energy, and then we're immediately into the ocean. And do you need to get out? Don't you need to get out? We've got life preservers. I'm her lifeline. You know, it's just all over the field. And I think that has its positive aspects, right? This is partially like somebody just said, this is what we do. In a way, we try to be supportive, make the world a better place. You know, help people resolve problems. So it's not a bad thing, but it's important to recognize that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my comment was going to be how you stay there in the body, Fiona. So Kathleen immediately went to the body, but then started coming up again. And you say, go back there. Just say, so I guess when you say contemplative, that's what you mean, that to stay there, just to stay there. And even your follow-up question to her then was, in the water it's pleasant, and you said, and how long are you going to stay there? So you were working with staying.
Yeah.
Powerful.
So thank you, Eva. And in a way, what this is about is, it's a kind of a dance, isn't it? That sometimes it's a thought, sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes there is nowhere to go except, well, what's arising in this exchange? And certainly, and I love to work with image and metaphor myself. So in a way, although I call this emergent learning, I have my agenda too, which is, I wonder what's going on inside Kathleen. I wonder what her creative self is making of all these experiences. Because when you were sitting with me, Kathleen, you were saying, no, and I thought, there's something else going on. I wonder what it is. So my curiosity took me to your inner life, if you like, not just your feelings, because your inner life is full of stuff, isn't it, that can inform your thinking. But you need to go there to discover what it is. And I think you like that.
I do. And so as a supervisor, and certainly as a coach, I like playing with metaphor. I think there's great power in it.
Yeah.
As the supervisee in this circle, what I think I was having a judgmental reaction, honestly, to some of the inner circle when what I got reflected back was the interpretation or the sense that, oh, I've been here before, I've had a similar client. Because there's something that I just went, I don't think that's true. So it was harder for me to hear those messages. It was far easier for me to hear the messages of, I'm feeling like a sense of irritation or resistance or whatever. As soon as what was coming to me was that, whether it was projection or interpretation or whatever, I had to really want to keep myself open enough to hear it as equally valid.
Sure.
And by the way, this is all subconscious. I'm not actively processing this, but I just kept noticing when it felt like an interpretation, I felt more resistant to it. And I just love that, to say, how often do any of us as coaches or supervisors or in a group of supervision not keep at bay as you did so beautifully, the desire to interpret.
It's a very strong desire because we're all clever people. We've all got fabulous ways of thinking, and we spot things and, oh, I saw that. And in a way, it's quite hard not to do that. And that sometimes it's quite useful. You can say, what do you think? What's your sense here? Not, what are you feeling? So we want both, don't we? And I think whoever said that there's a sort of rescue theme here, isn't there? And I think when we're offering our this is my best guess about what would be helpful here, that's a bit of a rescue, isn't it? Not always, but there's a theme here of rescuing, isn't there? And you're smiling again. Thank you for that.
I think that's really a very valid and valuable distinction for all of us here when we're working with groups. Because the differentiation between sharing interpretations of trying to make sense versus sharing my personal experiences or my personal reactions can be very valuable. And sometimes in group supervision, if the interpretations are not explored, that Kathleen, the resistance, what is pretty normal reaction, can become then resistance to everything else happening in the session. So how do you really, as a facilitator, as a group supervisor, you manage not only the client who's bringing the case, but the whole group. So the whole group can also learn from the experience, and at the same time, the person who is bringing the case feels supportive versus judge, what can be sometimes a risk for new groups. And I think, Fiona, in this case, you have a big challenge because these people didn't know each other. So I don't know, Kathleen, if you have met any of your colleagues in this group before, probably not. And still...
Not many, but maybe 2 or 3, and some folks from the Global Supervision Network. I also feel very safe in here. And I think you're right to say, how do any of us softly, kindly, gently interject when we're supervising, when that's what's coming up for others?
It's quite an art, actually, isn't it? Just to sort of gauge, calibrate, well, what's needed here? And it's often good just to say, what do you need right now? I've got this, and this I could tell you. What would you like to choose? Because we've all got all sorts of lovely things we want to share because we're experienced and we know things. But actually, I think that the task of supervision is to call forth, I love that phrase, call forth from the supervisee, what goes on here? Can we reflect together? Can we be together and share what it's like for you? That will open up your sense of what you need to be doing, not my sense. Now, I used to be a psychotherapist, and I was trained to analyze. It's hard to let go of it. I was very old-fashioned at one time. Learning to let go of that. Anyway, I'm conscious of time. And Damien, or any more questions?
I think we had time for 1 or 2 before we wrap up.
Okay, we've got a hand up. Yeah.
So I had a question about the process and your use of the inner group and outer group.
Yeah.
As a member of the inner group, I found it frustrating that we're actually locked out of commenting for a while.
Oh,
as
right.
You went to the outer group.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious about your thoughts around inner, outer, and how to make use of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think my thinking around the model that I've worked with you on today is that if you have too many people in the inner circle, it can be a bit much for the volunteer speaker, as it were, the volunteer person, supervisee. So my thinking was make it fairly small and then gradually move out rather than have, because there's so many people here, I think it would have taken longer and maybe have been more difficult for you, Kathleen. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Kathleen, about that comment?
So I have been in supervision for years. So I think I have kind of thick skin, if you will. Yes. If I didn't have as much sort of experience and trust in the process and ability to kind of just be disclosing, it may have been harder. But what I think I heard Jonathan say was, as an inner circle participant, you would have liked one more round to comment before we opened it up to the larger group.
Well spotted. Is that right, Jonathan? Did you feel
Yes.
have enough
Yes.
time?
Yeah, it just, you know, what did we put our hands up for? That contracting actually wasn't clear.
Hmm.
And so then it ended up chafing a bit.
Okay, that's good learning for me. Thank you. So,
any last comment or question before we wrap up?
well, I would just like to thank you all for participating in this experimental session.
And thank you, Fiona, for giving us the opportunity to reflect with you, and Kathleen for being so generous in.
And thank you to the group and Fiona. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and also the small group that volunteered to be part of that. Thank you also, and everybody for being here today. Before we go, we have a couple of announcements. One is next month we have Peter Hawkins joining us. So do you want to, Lily, give us the details about that?
Yeah, so Peter's coming May 13th, and he will be sharing his thoughts on supervising team coaches. So that's May 13th. And then June is our conference, so there won't be a call in June. And then July is learnings from the conference. August is Lori Hillis. She's on this call talking about shame and vulnerability and Brené's work and how it relates to supervision. And then we'll present the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, so if you want to join us for our conference, we still have spaces. Fiona is going to be one of the presenters. She's going to be doing 2 activities there, and Eva, who's in the call too, and Michelle.
And Keys is there. Who else is there?
Legal issues.
Yeah.
We're missing anybody. So it will be a really great conference. We hope that you can join us. Any other announcement, Lily, we need to do before we go?
No, I think I'm done there. It was great to see this group. I think we had a height of 45 people. That's one of our biggest subscribed groups from around the world. So that's very cool.
And I want to invite people who are interested. We are also opening a network for the Asian Pacific coaches, supervisors. Michelle has been joining me, and Lily, you have been there too. Anybody who is interested in joining that network is similar to this, is free, and we have different speakers and also demos. Like today, Fiona did a group demo. We're having different demos there. So if you're available, probably would not work well for people in Europe, but this is focused on people in Asia, supervisors in Asia. But if you're interested and available, please send me a note, and I will include you in the other mailing list, so you can also be part of that. And with that, we're looking forward to seeing you next month. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you for asking me. Bye.